Hello, viewers. This is my first time ever doing a pre-fight analysis, but I thought it would be fun to try out what it's like to be behind the booth talking about fights, um, because it's something that I love and I want to know more about it by displaying my knowledge of the fighters and what they can do. So we're going to talk about Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier, the rematch. Um, their first fight. Um, Dustin Poirier won by a leg triangle choke, armbar submission, and that's one of Max Holloway's three losses. Um, he lost to Dennis Bermudez, Poirier, and Conor McGregor. Two of those fighters are currently retired. But Max has been on a tear, and those losses happened when he was a very young fighter and was basically debuting in the UFC. He didn't have many fights when he lost to those elite level strikers and grapplers. Um, so with Max Holloway, he's known as a volume striker. He hits very hard. If you've never seen Max Holloway fight, he's a very entertaining fighter, and he brings it every single time. He doesn't back up, um, and even though he's a lengthy fighter, he doesn't fight particularly long. He gets hit a lot, actually. Um, Even though, I mean, if you look at the stats, the vast majority of the strikes are on his side. If you watch the fights, he's a very hittable fighter, but he has an incredible chin, and he's able to sap people's energy and absorb the shots really well. Dustin Poirier is a very refined boxer himself. I would say he's more of a power striker than Max Holloway. His boxing become way sharper in um, his new ever since he fought Conor McGregor, his career's kind of um, changed. When he moved up to 155, he just became a more powerful, more refined, more veteran-like fighter in general. Just uses tactical um, fighting to win. But Dustin Poirier, he is known to wind up his shots a lot. He is a guy that um, he doesn't wear out very easily in fights, but he is one of those guys where if he's in a dogfight, um, it does show. Like he does have tells um, in his stamina when he's up against high level competition. Um, but he's a very consistent fighter, and I would say he has the power advantage over Max Holloway. Um, Between those two fighters, it's a very tough decision because I feel as though Dustin Poirier, he has a jiu-jitsu black belt. He has he's been at 155 a lot longer. I mean, this is Max Holloway's 155 debut. Um, but I mean, both of them are absolutely amazing strikers, and Max Holloway has really great takedown defense and grappling fundamentals. He's underrated in his ability to grapple, even though he doesn't um, have a black belt like a lot of the people at this level of the game do, and that's really impressive considering that he has a title right now. But overall pick between these two fighters, I'd have to give it to Max Holloway just because I don't think, even with Dustin Poirier's advantage in the grappling department, I don't see him taking it there. And if he relies on his power, I feel like Max Holloway will be able to bear it, and because of that, I think Dustin Poirier will wither in the later rounds because of Max Holloway's pace and his resilience. So um, I think Max Holloway, um, fourth round TKO. Um, but in general, if Dustin Poirier is going to win this fight, he's got to do it within the first three rounds, in my opinion. Um, and if Max Holloway is going to win, it's got to happen. It's probably going to happen in the later rounds because I don't think Max Holloway can put Dustin Poirier away with strikes in the first two rounds. It's his first time at 155, and I think he's a big guy. He cuts a lot of weight to get to 145, but um, it I wouldn't say that he um, has the power to knock out the top level 155ers based off of what we've seen at 145. He's not really a one punch knockout guy. Moving on to Kelvin Gastelum versus Israel Adesanya. This is a great fight, and it reminds me a lot of Kevin Gastelum's win over what's his name, Uriah Hall. Um, Uriah Hall was kind of a similar style to Israel Adesanya, um, and he was the heavy favorite to win the Ultimate Fighter. But Kelvin Gastelum was just the guy that everyone slept on in that season. And I remember watching the entire season and not really thinking much of Kelvin's striking just because of his build and the way he moved. It didn't seem like there was anything particularly special about his boxing or how he was setting up the strikes. But he's just a master of subtlety. He doesn't make a lot of big mistakes. He reminds me kind of a like Mikey Garcia style fighter. He just has knockout power capability. He isn't flashy, but he gets the job done every time, and he's just a tough son of a bitch. Um, and Israel Adesanya is a highly upgraded um, and younger version of Uriah Hall. Nothing against Uriah Hall. I mean, one of the best fights I've seen in the middleweight division was with Uriah Hall against that Polish fighter. Um, it'll have to come back to me. But Uriah Hall is an incredible fighter. But I'm obviously partial to the flashy Anderson Silva spinning wheel kick, um, Roy Jones Jr. flashy style of fighter because I mean that's just what everyone wants to see, and also Taekwondo is what I was raised in as a martial artist, so I have a lot of respect for that whole style of fighting. But I think it'll be a very interesting matchup to see how Kelvin deals with the unpredictability of Israel Adesanya because not only is he a flashy karate style fighter, but he has some of the best Muay Thai in the game, and that will take a lot out of Kelvin Gastelum's offense if Israel Adesanya is able to chop those legs down as Kelvin's trying to bridge the distance between them. I could see it being a beat down for Israel Adesanya. I could see him doing very well against Kelvin Gastelum if he sticks with the leg kicks and kind of employs a old school Jose Aldo offense on Kelvin Gastelum. But the one thing that you have to keep in mind with a fight like this is Israel Adesanya, um, although he does have a very good chin, it has been cracked before. And if there's anyone that can knock people out in the middleweight division, Kelvin Gastelum's the guy. I mean, he moved up from 170, and he's just been marking pretty much everybody. The only problem I have with the way this fight was set up is that it really isn't fair to Robert Whitaker or Yoel. I mean, not Yoel Romero, but Jacare Souza. I thought Jacare won the fight against Kelvin Gastelum, and his win over Chris Weidman was probably the most impressive in the division in recent memory. That was one of the best fights in the middleweight division of all time. Um, so it's a little bit unfortunate that we're not seeing uh, either Jacare or uh, Robert Whitaker fighting, just because I feel like they've uh, their stake to the title is more legitimate than either Israel Adesanya or Kelvin Gastelum. If you look at Israel Adesanya's record, it's a fantastic record, but um, I think his last win over Anderson Silva is a questionable road to the title to take on a guy that's well past his prime. Granted, one of the best ever, but I think that the combination of him being the center of uh, public scandal and having the, I don't know, stress of being held as the best fighter ever, um, it, it it pushes him to do things that he probably shouldn't be doing in terms of continuing his career past what's safe. Um, but you have to respect a win over Anderson Silva, no matter what age he is. He's the goat. So Israel Adesanya is definitely a legitimate contender, and so is Kelvin Gastelum. I just don't think it's the right fight for the title. But that's why it's an interim title bout. I just hope it never gets. I hope that whoever wins this fight doesn't win the actual title by vacation by Robert Whitaker permanently vacating the belt due to injury or something like that. That would be very unfortunate. Um, then we have Eric Anders versus Khalil Roundtree. A bout of very hard hitters. Eric Anders, he has um, a little bit of a wonky style, but he is a very effective and powerful striker. Um, a very intelligent fighter, has really good grappling capability. Um, and Khalil Roundtree, I mean, this guy hits probably harder than um, 90% of the division. And he knocked out Gokhan Saki, one of the best kickboxers ever. Um, so it's a very interesting fight. I would have to give it to Eric Anders just because I think he does so well in the later rounds, and he just I think he has a serious cardio advantage over Khalil Roundtree. A lot of the fights that I've seen of Khalil haven't really displayed um, his resilience over a long fight. Most of his wins have been explosive knockouts, and when he's tested cardiovascularly, it hasn't been a good look for him. So, I mean, I could be wrong, obviously, on any of the things I'm saying, and I say this with the utmost respect because I love watching these fighters. But I would have to give the edge to Eric Anders, and I feel like a decision win for Eric Anders is a very probable outcome of this fight. Then going on to Alan Joban versus Dwight Grant. I've actually never seen Dwight Grant fight before, but Alan Joban is an excellent Thai boxer. Um, he's very um, very powerful. He's good at fighting up against the cage if somebody backs him up. Um, he has great Muay Thai fundamentals. Does a lot of leg kicking. He has a lot of variety in his strikes. Um, he has a lot of power as well, but he also is he has just a good fundamental MMA game. Um, Dwight Grant, I really can't say much about him, but if he's being matched up with Alan Joban, he's got to be a very good fighter. So I'm gonna see Dwight Grant's um, record. He doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. This guy. That is scary. If I was Alan Joban, I'd be fucking pissed. It is not good to lose to a guy like that, having little publicity and people don't really know about him. Hopefully, uh, hopefully we could get some more information on this guy. He's 9-2, respectable record, um, but not a lot of information on him. His nickname is his name's Beanie Siegel. I guess he changed his name. What the fuck? American rapper Beanie Siegel. I'm very confused. All right, well, I would give Alan Joban the advantage in that fight. Ovin St. Preux versus Nikita Krylov. Now, this is a very interesting light heavyweight contest. Nikita Krylov is an incredible fighter, and he uh, ended up leaving the UFC either because of contractual agreements or losing a couple fights. But he was always fighting um, difficult strikers and doing well against them in the UFC. And then he left and went to a Russian organization and became the champion. And now he's back. So um, I I like his style, and it's a good mix of explosive, ruthless strikers. Owen St. Preux, you can never sleep on this guy. He has, I mean, he literally usurped Von Flue in using the technique that is now called the Owen St. Preux choke. Um, and he's a very clever fighter. He's had a couple of rough losses in recent memory, but um, I mean, who hasn't? And I could see either one of these guys winning the fight. This is a toss up for me, but just for the sake of choosing, I'm picking Nikita Krylov by decision. Just because I feel like Ovin St. Preux doesn't throw enough volume, but even then, it could easily be a situation where Ovin St. Preux out Russells Nikita Krylov or something like that. he's a very clever fighter, so I could see it going either way. Also, I don't think I gave a pick for like the exact time I think Alan Jouban would win. I think Alan Jouban's going to win this fight by a second round knockout um, against Dwight Grant. Going on to the prelims, excuse me, Jalen Turner versus Matt Frivola. I know Matt Frivola, and that guy is a real knockout artist. And I believe Jalen Turner was on uh, the, the contender series, Tuesday night contender series, and he got some pretty brutal knockout. I remember, so I see this being a Slabanaka, and I don't know who will win that, but I'll just pick Matt Frivola because I'm more familiar with him, and he's been tested in the UFC. Wilson Hayes versus Alexander Pandoja. Um, I've seen Pandoja fight before, and I know Wilson Hayes, obviously, having fought for the title and having fought um, former champ Demetrius Johnson and current champ Henry Cejudo in losing efforts, but he's always been at the top of the division. He trains with Dominic Cruz. He's a legitimate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. So I'm going to give the edge to Wilson Hayes just because I think a lot of the losses he's had are um, not flukes, obviously, but I think that he has a lot more to offer than a lot of people would see in his record. Um, and Alexander Pandoja, he's got really good striking, but I just see Wilson Hayes' Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pedigree as a really difficult problem to solve. So I'll pick Wilson Hayes' first round submission against Alexander Pandoja. Max Griffin versus Zelim Imadiev. Max Griffin is a fantastic fighter. He was able to completely outclass Mike Perry, who is a fighter I have a lot of respect for. I think Max Griffin is gonna jack up whoever this guy is. I mean, it's a scary name, Zelim Imadiev, because I mean, it sounds like it's straight out of Dagestan. But I think Dagestan has become a little bit less spooky after Khabib's cousin was knocked out in the first round at PFL, which I attended. It was a weird fight to watch. It was the first fighter from Ukraine I'd ever seen, and he was able to knock out like a man that was a part of a martial arts dynasty, or still is. So I mean, it just kind of took the aura out of it for me. So I still hold Dagestan as a pretty crazy martial arts hotbed, but Max Griffin is a tough fucking cookie. So we'll see. A guy named Boston Salmon. Boston Salmon versus Khalid Taha. I like Boston Salmon's name, so uh, and as a Jew that loves smoked salmon or lox, I'm gonna pick lox over shawarma. All right, lox over shawarma. That might be a little bit racist piece in the Middle East, but yeah. Then the early prelims. Let's see if I know anybody. Curtis Millender, fantastic fighter, sniper, just knockout galore. Bilal Muhammad, he's also a very good fighter, but I could see Curtis Millender just murking him in the first round, to be honest. Montel Jackson, British fighter. He It's been said that he has a resemblance to Tyron Woodley. Um, very good fighter. Um, Actually, no, I'm thinking of somebody else. Yeah, not Montel Jackson. Thinking of another guy that's in the 185 division. But the beard threw me off. Andre Sokomtat, the guy that famously uh, went to the ground with a guy that had a fucked up leg. And what's his name? Sean O'Malley. Yeah, he lost against Sean O'Malley because he didn't stand up, which was very unfortunate. And Rashad Evans had some very funny commentary roasting his boy. Um, and we have Mueller, a familiar face in the UFC women's flyweight division, versus Polyana Botello. Ah, yes, I've seen Polyana. So Polyana has some really good Muay Thai. She's very explosive, but she's also a little bit um, windy. She winds up her shots a lot. Um, I remember Lauren having really good grappling and wrestling. If she can get a takedown on Polyana, I think it'll be a difficult fight for Polyana. But I think Polyana's knockout power is something to be afraid of. So I'm gonna pick Polyana um, by first round knockout. And those are all my picks. But I think it should be a really good card. Um, Make sure to tune in Saturday, April 13th, 10 p.m. Eastern time for the main event, and prelims start early. Prelims start 8 p.m. So yeah, it should be good, man, or ladies and gentlemen. And I'll try and pump out one of these every week or so and get better as I go along. This is the first time I've ever broadcast anything. I'm sure I'm gonna edit the shit out of this so it doesn't sound so bad, but um, yeah, should be good, man.